Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of the Spice Squadron podcast.
You're officially a teenager.
Not wrong. Not wrong.
We are here, and we are excited.
We're very excited. Yesterday was the Cunning stream.
And boy, was it cunning.
It was Cunning. And so we got a bunch of spoilers from that, and then we're just going to be talking about kind of our thoughts on Cunning, what it kind of does, what its identity is in the current card game and in the current meta.
I think so far, out of all the streams and all the reveals, these are the ones I think I can safely say we both look forward to the most, because it's when we get the most information about the colors themselves. And now that that's done, we've done all the aspects now. It'll be interesting to see what we get coming up. And I know,
next month will be exciting because we have the competitive, not the competitive, but the constructed gameplay.
That's at the end of this month.
That's in this month, but then we don't know what.
Well, we don't know what could come.
Yeah, it could be anything.
I would say we might get to see, hopefully, fingers crossed, we get to see a lot more of those constructed gameplay videos once a month. That'd be really sweet.
That would be really cool,
we get one stream that's not constructed, like that's like talking game, one that is, and that's when we can see some cool cards being shown off there in use. But enough about talking about cool cards, and let's talk about cool cards. We had we had 8 spoilers, a pretty substantial follow up to last week. Honestly, really pumping out the spoilers, and I love it.
Absolutely.
So, you guys all would have seen by now. Our spoiler last week, if you didn't see it, go check it out. It's an awesome card.
Thank you so much for watching that, by the way.
Thank you.
Over 200 views now, so
insane.
It's very, very exciting.
It's nuts. Every time we visit our channel, and we do it constantly and excitedly, because we love interacting with you guys. We love seeing when people post and everything. It just baffles me to see the number of people who watch and the number of subscribers we have, and we love it, and we want to keep growing, we want to keep reaching you guys out. And just a quick word of thank you for everyone who reached out with their kind words, for all of your support, and realistically, it's the only reason we get or are able to get spoiler cards. So, but moving on from that, last week we had our spoiler card, but we also got some other sweet cards. Starting off with, it is Cunning Month, so we've got a card that I'm actually really excited about.
Yeah, it's a very interesting card. It is the
Mining Guild TIE
Fighter. Yeah, very one of the first kind of really interesting cost sinks that we have that we're talking about is it is a 1 cost. It is a 2/1, and it's a
1/2.
It's a 1/2.
It's actually a 1/2. It's the inverse of the Imperial TIE Fighter stats.
Sorry. It is Cunning Neutral,
which is sweet.
And its ability is kind of really what makes it
interesting. Awesome, makes it exciting, yeah.
So on attack, you may pay 2 resources. If you do, draw a card.
That's so cool. My first thought, and if you check out gameplay this week, you'll get to hopefully see it. My first thought is Boba Fett.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a resource sink. This is if early game, you're like, I need to get my resources up, or late game, you need to get your resources up. This is a great card to use. It's awesome. One thing that I like about this card too that we didn't talk about last week, and I mentioned this too before, we probably should have. Vehicle. It's a vehicle. Vehicle is a really big archetype. I'm sure James and I, we definitely will be revisiting our archetype topic later down the track. Probably once the full set's revealed, then we can start really unpacking like the meat of the archetypes, and we'll definitely focus on vehicles in that. But really relevant, this card's a vehicle, because one card that I really like pairing with it, and I know one card you really like, is Smuggling Compartment.
Yeah, absolutely. Adding the +1/+1 to it is really nice to kind of help it survive.
Yeah, it's awesome. And
being able to untap an energy is huge. If you're using the ability, it's really then only paying 1.
If you get
and if you're not using and if you need the energy, you can just not use the ability.
If you get 2 onto this, it becomes a 3/4 on attack draw card.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
In a deck like Boba Fett, where you're removing your opponent's board, you're playing a lot of events, you're going to be playing that evasion. It can. I've definitely, and I know you felt this way too. We've ended turns. We've just had resources up because we have cards we can play, it's probably not the best time to play them. We want to use our resources wisely. And it's just cool to have something where it's like, cool, I can attack, I can pay 2, I draw a card, and it's all in one go.
Yeah.
It's not like I have to swing your action, then I can pay 2, and then it's cool, I'm going to attack. If I want to, I can. If I don't want to, I don't have to. With Smuggling Compartment, you can stack it. So you can untap the resources first and then draw, or you can tap 2, draw, then untap the resources. Sweet. I love it. I honestly think Mining Guild TIE Fighter is one of those cards where, don't worry, it's probably not going to go in every deck, but the decks that it is going to go in, it's going to feel like a really nice unit.
And one of the things about Smuggling Compartment is that I've found is that sometimes I want to swing with it immediately, but I feel like I'm not getting the full value out of it because I'm not untapping one.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm doing it as my first action. With this, you can just tap 2, and then untap 1, and get kind of that full value and draw a card out of everything there, even if you're doing it as the first action.
I also like the cheap cost of this card. I like that I can turn 1 if I have both cards in my hand. I can go this and Smuggler's Compartment. And then next turn, on turn 3, I'm swinging with it and I'm paying 2 and I'm drawing 1 and tapping 1, so I still have 2 resources to go. So I'm not left at that awkward phase where I've got 2 resources and 1 ready, and I don't want to use a Waylay. I'm probably going to play a Viper Probe draw, but then I've just got 1 resource floating around. Or at least this way, it's essentially pay 1, draw a card.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's definitely something that is kind of like that. Playing 2 1 costs can be kind of rough in turn 1 because you're kind of dropping a lot of cards down.
Although yellow 1 costs seem pretty good.
That is true. But in this situation where you're kind of already getting that cheap draw onto the board early, you're not really too fast unless they they have an easy way to remove it, which something like 4-stroke isn't going to be able to do. Is huge. And so this is a turn 1 Boba play of just mining and Smuggling Compartment would be a huge...
Also interesting because it dodges a lot of that early game removal in the sense that it's not worth open firing. It's not worth waylaying.
Well, I think it actually is worth open firing, which is actually a good thing.
But at first glance, if I didn't know this card or wasn't prepared for it, I do agree with James. I think this card's worth open firing. The value, depending on the deck you're playing against, is ridiculous. But if you were to show me this card the first time and I wasn't going to think about it, I would probably not open fire it. You can't Vader it because it's got 2 health, so you're dodging that.
Absolutely, which is huge.
Which is huge because a lot of the time, you play the other TIE Fighter, it's a 2-1. Your opponent's response to that can literally be their own TIE Fighter or Death Star Stormtrooper, just pick it for and kill it.
Yeah, and even other 1 costs, Greo, you have...
Spoiler.
And the Death Star Trooper and the LN Fighter, all of them just kind of fall into that category where Vader puts out that really heavy pressure early.
Which is great. I really like the Vader leader, and in all honesty, and we talked about this in our meta predictions, I definitely think it's going to be a leader we're going to see. But I love that card. I think Mining Guild TIE Fighter is really cool. I think in the decks that it's going to be used in, it's going to be great. Another really cool card I think is really good. I've seen a lot of people in the air about it because of its cost is the biggest thing. But Search Your Feelings. This card is a 4-cost blue villain event, which is really sweet. Is this our first blue villain event? Believe it is.
Yeah, I think it might be, actually.
It's 4-cost blue villain event. It says, fittingly enough, search your deck for a card, draw that card.
Absolutely.
You don't have to reveal your opponent this card because you're drawing it.
Yep.
It doesn't specify anything, so you don't need to reveal it to prove to your opponent that you've drawn it. Fittingly enough, I really like that. Search your feelings. Your deck is your feelings. This is awesome. I think getting a card or searching for a card in a lot of other card games called tutoring, I think it's a really powerful effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking for any card in your deck is always going to be extremely powerful. I think that this card is going to be extremely useful in that kind of where we're getting kind of drip fed this kind of idea of what villain vigilance is.
Yeah, and it is control. I mean, we've seen Dooku, we've seen Death Trooper, we've seen the Walker. Like, it all kind of fits that niche of like you want to be you want to just be playing these wacky, strong units and controlling the board. And I definitely think this is a good card in a blue-green control deck. I think the thing that balances this card, and I think this is the reason why I've seen a few people say, oh, this isn't as powerful as I feel it could be, is its cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming in at 4 cost is...
It's awkward.
Yeah, it is definitely awkward. It's one of those things that, like, you do not want to be playing this turn 3 because you're losing... The amount of momentum you lose, even if you're going and getting the best card in your deck, you're essentially using that whole turn to just do nothing. And so it kind of comes to the point where it's like, well, now I need to play it later in the game when I can do some other stuff as well and then use it, or like to close out a game. And then it becomes, do I hold it in my hand for that long? Do I just assume I'm going to draw it again? Or like, if you draw this early, it can kind of be that awkward moment of like, am I keeping this for later, or am I resourcing it and hoping I draw another one? And I believe this card can really come down to how it's the deck that it's around rather than the deck itself.
I agree with that.
I think it's huge to incorporate just what deck this is going into, whether it's good or not, rather than just looking at the card in a vacuum and being like, is it good or is it not?
I think this deck definitely has a home. This card definitely has a home in control. And I think if this card was a 2 cost, it would be ridiculous.
Absolutely.
I think if this card was a 3 cost, it would be fine on the strong side. I think this card, where it is balanced. I think this is a card that you play in a blue-green control deck where, you're really hitting your stride. You've managed to attrition out your opponent with early game takedowns, vanquishes, overwhelming barrages, and then you get to that late game after you've built up and you're like, I need to go get my Relentless for next turn. You go get it. I need to go get my Devastator for next turn. You go get it. I need to go get, it's turn 9 and I need to go get an overwhelming barrage. Sweet. I'm going to go do that and I'm going to get it. This is a card you play on the later turns. I think the really big part about this card, with its skill gap, well, not skill gap, sorry, it's what determines whether or not a good player uses this card is when they play it.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing even on those later turns when the board state is in a moment where you just don't have the luxury. And that's what this card is to me. It's a luxury, right?
Yeah.
It is an ability to say, I am confident enough in my board state that I'm going to spend half or maybe a little bit less than half of my resources securing the victory.
And that's what it's securing the victory. So it's not, it's to me, it's not a win more card. It's I am ahead and I can confidently now go get my victory piece to secure the win.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't have my Devastator yet, but I'm at the point where if I had Devastator, I would win. So I'm going to go get it.
Yeah, and I have faith in my board state and
that I'll be fine.
That I'm not gonna they're not gonna just remove everything and
that's why you
swing.
That's why you play it later, is because if you play it later, you've still got resources up to do more stuff with. Now, I think that really kind of covers off that card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both of those cards are released at the same time. In terms of the Mining Guild TIE Fighter, I probably give it I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 on the Spysometer. In terms of the Search Your Feelings, it's a good card, solid. We discussed this a little bit before, that just right now, it is good, but it really is, as James said, really depends on what your deck's doing.
Yeah, I think the
really
fact that we
depends on what's in your deck.
There's so much more blue villain to see.
Yeah,
it's like
we just can't say if this is good or not yet.
A lot of those blue villain decks, whenever I've played them, have always felt like, I need something, need some more. And like, we're slowly getting there.
You're playing it. I play Dooku and it feels good, but Dooku isn't the end. I know Dooku's not the end. Like, Dooku is definitely a late game control card, but it's not the end. But I give this...
Speaking of... Oh, sorry, go.
I give this one right now, I'm giving it a 2. I don't think it's entirely awful, and I will probably amend my rating. I know James and I are looking to do like proper set review later down the track. I'll probably amend my ratings for the Spysometer, subject to change. Read the T's and C's. Later down the track. Currently, it's a 2, 2.5. But moving on from that.
As I was saying about Dooku, we had a little bit of an FAQ that came out from the Garbage Rollers.
Yes, go check that out if you haven't. It's really cool, really
check
helpful.
out their articles and their gameplay. They're always great. But some really interesting rulings kind of came out of that. One of the really interesting ones was we kind of already knew that the Fett's fire spray, when coming in with ambush, could ambush and then ready. We had the same thing with shielded. So if you manage to ambush in Dooku, you can ambush him, swing at something, and maybe take some damage back, and then put the shield on.
I like that.
So there's some like really interesting kind of plays that you can do around that, where it's like, like I think he could kill Dooku with this unit. Well, I'm not going to make sure the shield isn't gone, so I'm going to damage him a little bit because he can't get there.
You can choose when they resolve, essentially, as the owner of the card. And one other thing I really liked is we got confirmation that you do draw from Callus even if he's defeated. That was nice. Very good. That's really nice. That's really nice to know. But yeah, go check that article out if you want some more clarifications on some of the more confusing rulings. I'm sure we'll probably end up covering, again, I know that FFG has stated they're going to release like an official FAQ on set release. I'm sure we'll end up doing a video covering that for just some of the like rules that might catch you off guard. But moving on from that, we had our awesome cunning stream.
But before that, we had
it's Cunning Month.
Cunning Month. The community kind of showing, as always.
Haven't broken the streak. We got a base.
We got a base. This one's a really interesting base. It is. Jeddah City.
Yeah. Remember when the Death Star destroyed it and blew it to pieces? From that scene.
Not wrong.
Notable scene.
But yeah, it's a 25 health base like all the other rare bases are.
29.
Its ability is power action, choose an opponent's...
Power action? I haven't heard that in a while. Epic action.
Epic action, sorry.
Power action, wow.
That was Destiny,
that
wasn't it?
Destiny. Taking it back. It's epic action.
Epic action, sorry. Wow. The epic action is an opponent's unit gets -4, -0
for the phase.
For the phase.
Interesting. That's why I made the joke about it being a 29 health unit, because you can -4 and take 4 less damage. But interesting base. We had a brief discussion about this earlier, that right now a lot of those 25 health bases, I mean, I like the 30 health right now.
I think that it really depends on what your build is.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of hype around these 25 health bases at the moment.
They are really cool.
Understand that like having a base that can do something else is really cool. Tarkin Town, and like the energy conversion complex, both are really big at the moment on being used. I think we're going to kind of find a happy medium where some bases are going to be running it,
and
such as but I know Boba Fett Green likes that.
Needs that ambush. Yeah. It's so good.
Especially like I've seen a few different gameplays of where it's just like against Leia specifically, like just being able to like bring in 3 cost Boba, just kill any 6 health leader on the turn that they come in.
Any 6 health unit that's already been there as well. Like, you really gotcha your opponent with it, and boy, is it powerful.
I remember the first time I did that against you.
Yeah, I literally was stunned. I was like, that's not how it works, and it is. It's even in that FAQ. It's in that FAQ.
But yeah, so these 25 health bases are really popular at the moment. I think we're going to see that fall off a little bit when we get to set release.
I agree.
When kind of that is full aggro decks start to come into play.
I'm excited. I love aggro.
But I definitely understand that there's some really cool effects in there. I think
it's cool. I like the show off of Cunning doing Cunning things. Like, we now know that Cunning, like, we knew Cunning was about disruption, but it's really varied. Like, Cunning's all about it, and it's really sweet. I think this base is really interesting in the sense that we discussed this a little bit earlier. You have a Sentinel on board. I'm going to minus its power so I can swing in it with no crackback.
Yeah. And it has a few, like, there's a lot of uses like that. You put it on something so they can't swing in it, then you can remove it at your leisure. So it is, like, there is a, like, oh, it's 29 health base. It's like, well, there is a lot more
Other
application
applications
to
for it.
minusing 4 damage than just not taking 4 damage.
There could be cards that have effects where if they're at a certain power, they do something. Or, you know, like you may be on the turn where you really, if you get swung at one more time, you die, but you also win if you don't get swung at that one more time. So you're able to spend that power, that epic action, far out, to -4, -0 something. For me, I feel these bases are, because it's set 1, they're balanced, and I like that. But I really think these bases are more of a precursor to show everyone who's ready and keen for Star Wars Unlimited that, hey, you're getting more of this.
Oh yeah, and like as we go forward, the bases are just gonna we're gonna get 27 health bases.
Give me the Clone Camino Factory and give me 1/1.
I can't wait for the 10 health base.
Yeah, 10 health base. You can play Galactic Ambition from your deck for free. I played Devastator. Good game. But no, seriously, it's good because I think one thing that is interesting about set 1 is it's such a large set because it's also a showcase of what the game is doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just new card game Star Wars, come get it. It's, hey guys, we're here to make something. We're here to show you what's coming. We're here to show you this is the foundation.
Yeah. And I think there's no card that exemplifies that more than Vigilance, the card. Because like as they said, like, oh, there's mill on here, but
it's coming later.
Like, so there's so many things where they're like, here's a deck style or an archetype that's kind of like, we're showing it to, here's Mace Windu, like,
here's Count Dooku, but Twilight of the Republic is the 3rd set.
Yeah.
Here's Fett's Fire Spray, it mentions Django.
Yeah, where's Django's coming next set? 3 sets? Set 9?
But it doesn't matter because we know that that's the kind of stuff they're doing. And honestly, future-proofing in games is great. Because future-proofing means that you have less issues in the future. It's almost like you've proofed it.
It also shows confidence in their future, right? It shows that they are looking at the future with confidence and being like, oh, we're going to be there in 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, and which can give us confidence when we're buying this original product of being like, I'm going to be able to play this for a while. Like, yeah, I know the rotation is coming in. There's all kinds of questions coming through that. But
even that, like, I'm still going to play this game for a while. I'm getting familiarized with the concepts now. So when and if rotation does come in, I can either play my legacy format or I can play both formats or just the standard format or whatever it'll be called and know what's coming, know what's good. But that's what I think this base exemplifies. I think it's really cool. I think it's really interesting. It definitely is a unique mechanic. I know you and I were looking forward to the neg mechanic. It'd be really cool. Please, FFG, if we can see some more cards like that. I know we've both been really excited to see stuff that's just like, you know, negging health as well, which would be so sweet.
I'd love to see, I said it in the stream, but obviously it didn't end up happening. I was kind of hoping to see another token upgrade that was a neg 1.
Yeah, I'd like that too. I think that'd be really cool. But it just adds a cool mechanic where it's like pseudo damage.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing that, especially if you build a deck, an archetype around doing that, it can do some really interesting things.
Anti-grit.
Yeah.
But that's that card. It was not and that's not the only cunning card we've got. I think you'll find that out of the 8, 7 are yellow. So Cunning Stream.
Yeah, getting into the Cunning Stream now. Immediately they just dropped cards on us like a minute into it.
This base. Much like the others, I'll probably give it a 2 out of 5. Spy Summoner. But yes. They literally dropped a card on us.
Yep, and that is Greo.
McClunky! Yeah. I love him. As we said earlier, Yellow's got some 1-drops. Yellow got a lot of 1-drops recently. If you'll notice, you know, Greo was a 1-drop.
1-drop neutral cunning.
Neutral is I think this is going to be another one of those cards where we've got it and people can be like, why is he neutral when he's a villain? Funnily enough, we've only seen villains that are neutral, like Callus, Yularen, 97th Troopers, and now Greedo.
Yeah, to be fair, we haven't seen a lot of
neutral hero. I guess
the
heroes are
heroes
just so
falling
heroic.
to the dark side of like.
Yeah, true. I guess heroes are just they're too good.
Yeah, it's not like, oh yeah, this Luke was neutral because that time that he burnt that orphanage down. Like
Blue milk.
I would love to get an old man Luke that's just
with the
neutral.
card, and you just, that'd be awesome. That'd be a sweet event if it's just him like he's got that grimace. He's just finished the cup and he's just wiping it off his face. Make that a mill card and call it blue milk. But so Greedo is a 1-cost. He's a 3/1. Imagine if Death Star Stormtrooper, but green and effect.
Green
Rhodian.
Oh, okay.
I meant not literally command. I meant
I was like,
Rhodian green. His effect is when destroyed, you may discard the top card of your deck, and if it isn't a unit, you may deal 2 damage to a unit.
Yeah, now you might notice that the card doesn't say from the top of your deck, but they did confirm that any time you draw or discard, it's always from the top.
Unless specified otherwise. Yeah. That's in the game rule. The devs, Tyler confirmed that. So yeah. But, sweet.
Yeah,
right?
very cool. I think this is in that kind of same ballpark of, like, as you were saying, like,
Underworld bounty hunters.
Like Death Star Stormtrooper gets used in every aggro deck.
Yeah, for sure.
And it has no ability. So this coming in with an ability as well.
Makes it even better. And you can splash it in not only yellow villain, although between you and me, it really has more of a place there. You can also put it in your hero decks as well.
And kind of, like they said it in the stream, Cunning does kind of care more about events. Has like that kind of more event-loaded deck, which we've noticed as we've like built Cunning decks.
I think I've mentioned it once or twice on my wish list is Cunning cards that search for events, and by the sounds of it, that's something maybe we definitely may get, which is really exciting. Last week's episode talked about aspects and keywords. Attributes and stuff. Last week we unpacked bounty hunters and underworld a bit. I really think Greedo fits so well in. From all the bounty hunters we've seen so far, they all have a damage effect. All 3 of them.
Yep.
Bosk, Boba Jr. and Greedo now have an effect related to dealing damage with a prerequisite. I think that's super cool. I love that this card fits in that archetype. I think Greedo really fits in nicely with the other bounty hunters.
Absolutely.
It's exciting to see a bit of like a tie-in theme with them because it does mean that there's something overarching going on and that hopefully we definitely do get some bounty hunter support set one because I love them, you love them, I'm sure you love them, but it's really cool. I love the fact that I can swing into a unit and potentially 2 for 1.
Yeah, absolutely, and that kind of seems like where they're going with this. He's designed to trade and to trade up always.
Yeah.
Even if he's just trading, like he's a 1-cost that can trade into a lot of 3 costs.
Yeah.
It really, and I think it's one of those things that's like kind of, we've seen a lot recently that these kind of lower health, higher costed units have really struggling to stay. I think my personal one is, and I'm probably completely wrong about this, but Cell Block Guard I find to be easily removed in a lot of matchups, and I usually end up cutting it from a lot of my decks because I find that it's just too easy to just get rid of.
I look at it more of like, I've played it, and if someone uses removal on it, it's kind of done its job, but I also understand removing it because there are just cards that can do it but better. One thing I like about Greedo is that a while back, we talked about deck building. And in that video, we talked about ratios and whether or not to stick to them. Do I run more events? Do I run less events? I like Greedo because Greedo influences your deck in. I've noticed that yellow decks tend to run more events, more than usual. And that's definitely true for this deck. Mono Yellow Boba I'm playing this week definitely runs a lot of events.
Yep.
I think Boba just likes to.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because normally I've seen a lot of people like, you only want to run 15 or so. I don't know. I think I run excess of 20.
I think these kind of ratios that people came up with were really locked down in that kind of. They started coming up so early on that it just kind of, it was a very small card pool when it happened. When those ratios first kind of came out and they first started talking about them, that it's just like most of the time, you get if you build exactly to the ratios, it's wrong.
I don't necessarily think that. I don't necessarily think that it's wrong. I think that you may be onto something with a ratio. I don't think it's as tight. I definitely don't think the ones that people have now are ones we should stick to upon full release, because we just don't have all the cards. But my point with it is, I think it's nice that I am incentivized to run more because I have a payoff to it.
Yeah.
And I think I do agree in the sense that definitely don't be sticking to the ratios that people have put out now, that we've put out now, because they will change. Everything's subject to change, especially in a game that's constantly evolving and coming out. Dare to adapt. Dare to ask the questions. Look at your Greo cards and go, do I just want to run more events than required? The answer is yes, because Greedo's a payoff to it. Why wouldn't you? And if you're unsure, test it. Who's going to stop you? No one. So you test out the decks you want to play and put in interesting cards like these that make you creatively build your deck. Like, I love Greo because it's a card that can 2-for-1. But if it's going to 2-for-1, I need to run more events. So I need to find that happy medium by the cards I want to run and the cards I don't want to run. And it was honestly a really enjoyable deck building experience today when I was going through and putting together mono yellow Boba. Another really, but I'd say that's pretty much, unless you have any other thoughts on Greo.
No,
Greo is sweet. Greo is dope. Like, genuinely awesome. I really like this card. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Very nice.
I think that it's a 1 cost that has a relevant effect, a relevant tradable body. It's got, in my opinion, 2 archetypes that I foresee being really relevant. Underworld, Bounty Hunter, either or could go somewhere. You know, I'd like to see either one of them get like a specific spotlight in this set, and maybe later on we could see something with like Cad Bane or something like that getting Bounty Hunters. I'm going to fix my mic up. All fixed. But maybe seeing Cad Bane with like a Bounty Hunter style synergy later on. But yeah, I definitely think Greedo's worthy of the 4.5 out of 5.
Absolutely. We're going to take down a little bit now. We're going to take down to a little bit less exciting cards, a little bit kind of just more of the general cards that you're going to be seeing.
It's another Underworld.
It's another
Underworld card.
Another Underworld card. This is Syndicate Lackeys.
They're the Pike Syndicate guys.
I'm not going to lie. I think it's a 5 cost.
5 cost, 5/4.
5/4.
Ambush.
With Ambush. That's it.
It's neutral yellow. Just like the dev said, this is a draft card.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a sealed card. This is a draft card. This is a card to fill out your deck. This is a good card in a situation where everybody's deck is limited. It is probably not the card that you're putting into your red-yellow Boba deck that you're taking to the Galactic Championships.
Just like every card game ever, not all the cards can be winners. You have to have some chaff, and you have to have some cards that are designed for draft and sealed, so draft and sealed is an enjoyable experience. I'm happy with that. I see this card, I'm like, that's a draft card, and that's fine by me. I pull this in draft, I'm like, sweet, Syndicate Lackeys. I probably don't build it in sealed, but that's fine by me. I'm not really going to be too worried about it.
Even in sealed, I'm probably putting Syndicate Lackeys in my
I mean in constructed, not sealed. I mean, in sealed, I'm pulling Syndicate Lackeys, and I pull it, hell yeah. But it's a neat card. You know, we're going to have cards that are specifically designed to draft, and by all means, yes please, if it makes draft a more enjoyable experience, I'm going to do it. I'd say, realistically, in a constructed environment, it's a 2 out of 5 on the Spiceometer, but it is what it is. It's a draft card, there's not too much to say about it. I like the art too. Pike Syndicate, the Spice Dealers, they're Spice Boys. But another group of guys, another gaggle of fellas in the Star Wars universe. I'm so excited for when we do our set reveal, and we definitely do all of like the tier list. Definitely going to do a fellas tier list of who's the most fellas in the galaxy.
Currently for me, it's still the Vigilant Honor Guard.
That's really valid. Those guys, but they're all like
it's the blacked out visors.
They're also striking poses. Like there's that one guy at the front who's like, yo, this is stuff. For me, it's Fighters for Freedom because the card artwork is like, I feel like there's someone that's meant to be there and they're not there. Like I feel like the artwork is just like, that's the background layer, and I'm supposed to have like a guy who's standing in the front, and they've taken him out, and now there's just some dudes in a
Fighters
workshop.
for Freedom feels like someone just took a photo of a rebel base without asking anybody permission to do so.
No, wait, they just went.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like doing their job, and I love it. We've got how many cards? We've got 3 cards. 3 cards left.
3 cards left. Yes.
All one hero,
very
one
cool
villain,
cards,
and 1 dual aspect. Shall we start with we'll start with the villain card? Yes. There's a lot to say about the hero card. I like it.
You're no good to me dead. Or just no good to me dead.
Thanks, man.
You're no good to me alive.
You heard it here first. Honestly, you can get a cardboard cutout and just use the voice clips I've said so far, and you guys will know the difference.
Oh yeah, Reese is actually an AI program that I've made.
Don't tell them that.
Doesn't exist.
I can't, even if I was
I just
AI.
edited him in. He's purely digital.
I'm not programmed to admit I'm AI. Not yet. I haven't learned that yet.
Anyway, no good to me dead.
No good to me dead.
It is a 2-cost cunning villain
event. Classic Cunning events.
Classic Cunning events.
I genuinely think that Cunning has the most events in the game revealed. By far.
I think Cunning is just going to have the most
events. Yeah, that's true.
So exhaust a unit.
It cannot ready this round.
It cannot ready this round. So that includes the regroup phase. So it's essentially you tap it and it just doesn't untap on at the end of the turn, so it's not ready on the next turn.
So for essentially 2 whole turns, you're locking it down. A good thing this card specifies non-leader, right? It doesn't.
It does.
You can pick leaders with it.
We can absolutely pick leaders. This is
nice
also
beta, loser.
Really good card against Grand Inquisitor because it stops him from readying it again because it says it cannot ready for this round. So even if he used his ability,
can't use aggression to ready it. Can't use Grand Inquisitor to ready it. I'm sure that we're definitely going to see other effects.
Oh yeah,
that ready
100%.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really cool card.
Is a good card to be like, I can't deal with this problem now, but I will be able to deal with it in 2 turns.
Or I'm going to win in 2 turns anyway, so you can just go to sleep.
The fact this can be used against a leader is really powerful to me because any leader that has a on attack trigger is useless for 2 turns. Hey Tarkin, nice job. Hey Han, nice job. Hey Leia, nice job. Are all the leaders when attacked? Pretty sure all the lead, except for Krennic has restore too.
IG-88 doesn't have an on attack trigger.
Chewbacca does not have an on attack. But for the vast majority of other leaders, that's pretty crippling. I know if someone did that to me in my Leia deck, I would feel not good if someone hit my Leia for 2 turns.
Any Vader deck is
rough, man.
Just not having a good time if they just get their Vader sat down for 2 turns.
You're playing against Luke and you're like, hey, just chill on the shields, big guy.
Yeah, no. I'm sure we're going to see that today.
Fingers crossed. But this is a cool card. This is a cool control piece. It's Han Solo and Carbonite. The name is sweet. All in all, this is a great yellow villain event. Also, our first yellow villain event.
Yeah, they've all been neutral.
Yeah, until today when we got our first hero and villain ones. Cool. I like this card. This is a sweet card. I rate this card. I think that this is a card that complements really well with another color in terms of your removal.
I think it complements really well with everything we've seen in Boba Fett. Like,
Yeah, which is great because thematically it is a Boba Fett card.
I think it's going to be really difficult, and I think it's going to come down a lot to Asteroid Sanctuary and this.
I don't think it is. Run both.
But like to play in any, like if you have both in your hand,
yeah.
it's going to come down a lot to like
in my opinion,
the value of both, and it's like both
opinion,
interesting. They're both 2 costs.
True. In my opinion, if you want to weigh it up, Asteroid Sanctuary in the early game, this in the late game. Hit the bigger threats in the late game that can't really defend themselves, and in the early game, put these on your low-cost traders like Greo, so that you're able to trade up twice. That's my theory with it. Let's see if that works out. I guess card a 4 out of 5 on the Spiceometer just because of its sheer usability. The devs themselves have said, sets down the line, once again cursing us with the future sets, that this card is still run.
Yeah.
So pretty sweet. Another pretty sweet card.
Another very sweet card. What's the name of the set that we're...
It's a Spark of Rebellion! They
now
said the name of the movie!
The card itself, Spark of Rebellion, it is a cunning villain... Ooh, the hero.
Whoa!
Cunning
it feels
heroism. Cunning heroism card.
Costs 2.
Costs 2 and says, look at your opponent's hand, pick one of those little fellas
little guys,
and rip it to pieces.
Look at your opponent's hand, pick
Or
a
put
card
it
in
in
their
the
hand,
discard pile.
discard it. Notably, this artwork is of the best character in Star Wars ever, Kanan Jarrus, and he is committing an act of terrorism on 2 stormtroopers. Most notably about this card, it is a Spectre.
It does have the Spectre keyword.
We talked about this last week. James mentioned it would be really sweet if we saw a Spectre
when
event.
with the Hera leader kind of negating aspect cost of Spectre cards, not Spectre. And they did say that's something that actually changed
during development because
yeah.
they mentioned they changed it during development because there's another card that they were like, oh, this is just such a Spectre card.
Yeah.
And they changed Hera so that you could include this, which is great because it means we're at least getting one other Spectre event. As a Rebels fan and a Hera deck fan, I'm so excited. You haven't seen a Hera deck yet? It is coming. It's coming. But
I'm going to play it.
No! But this card's cool.
This card is very
A
cool.
lot of people I've seen have some polarizing opinions on this card. A lot of people are excited. Some people are a bit like, I don't like hand discard. I like to look more of this as a control piece. Yeah. So it's not a play this card, you have no hand. It's I play this card, I'm now going to be able to disrupt you. And I think this card is a card that a lot of people fall into the trap of playing early. You don't want to play this early.
Yeah,
you play this mid-game.
This is a card that rewards knowledge of what your opponent wants to do.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to play this on a turn when they're ready to do something, and you can take a card out of the hand that's going to stop them from executing that very well. So it's one of those cases where, I've just buffed up this trooper a lot, and I have 5 resources open. It's like, I need to get that overwhelming barrage out of your hand. So it really rewards kind of, not necessarily counterplay, but like knowing what your opponent wants to do and just being able to know when this card is going to have the most effect.
I think the most powerful thing about this card is you look at your opponent's hand.
Yes.
That's wild. That's pretty nuts. We've seen cards like this in other card games. They've been good. They've been good. There've been some that are format staples. There've been some that just get out tempoed. So I reserve my right to say whether or not this card is wacky or not yet. I like it because I like Spectres. I think it's fun. I like control. Like look at your opponent's hand and being able to disrupt stuff. I just like taking options. I think this card. I think there's going to be a lot of cards, a lot of stuff surrounding this card where someone will either play it really well and you'll hate it, or someone will either play it really bad and you won't know why. Like they run it, and the reason is someone might pay 2, play the card, you'll show your hand, and they'll go, "Whoa, my God, is that the Vader legendary unit that I hope's coming out? Show me." I gotta get rid of that card, but it's only turn 4, and your opponent has
You're going to resource it next turn anyway.
Yeah, and your opponent has like a bunch of other cards, but your opponent should your opponent's got like a TIE Advance that they're about to play to buff up their like Sentinel, like their Emperor's Royal Guard. But you've just gone, oh my god, that's Darth Vader, gotta get rid of him. So I think there will be a lot of that surrounding it where, even especially if we see some boogeyman cards, like some real powerful cards, people might just like not take the situation in fully, slam the card, see a boogeyman card, and just go get rid of it. But it's only turn 3. So I think that's an interesting part of the card. All in all, I like the disruption aspect of this card. I like that it's a Spectre. I like that it's got Kanan on it. And I think it's interesting. I think it's a really interesting card. I think I like when a game has more flavors, like when it adds more mechanics. We've seen this work in other card games. It's tried and true tested. There are people who like it. There are people who don't. There's a vast majority of people who simply don't mind. And I think that it's fun. I think all in all, I like this card. I rate it probably a little bit more than I should because it's a Spectre, but I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5 on the Spy Summoner. I like it. I think it's sweet.
Coming up to our final card now, and it is
It's a doozy.
the trademark of these kind of streams that we've seen. The card known only as Cunning.
It's so sweet. The artwork on this, you actually called this. You called this.
I did.
We were sitting down a little while ago, as we so often do, and we were perusing the artwork that's been released. If you haven't seen the artwork, go to the FFG pages. They've posted a bunch of artwork. It's awesome. We've seen like Bib Fortuna, we've seen Jabba, we've seen like K2SO. I'm really excited to see what K2SO is like. We've seen Cassian Andor, but we saw this artwork, and James was like, "That's Cunning. That's going to be the Cunning artwork," and he was right. And the artwork's great. It's Han Solo from the movie Solo, and he's playing Sabak. He's playing card game. Guy plays cards. I play cards.
Card. Me card. You card. He card.
Card. Cunning is sweet. It's 4 costs, it's double Cunning, and it has choose 2.
Choose 2.
Return one of your opponent's units with a cost of 4 or less to their hand.
With a power 4 or less.
Is it power?
Power
I thought it was
4 or
cost.
less.
Power 4 or less to their owner's hand. There you go. That works in tandem with the base. If you want to get rid of an 8 power unit, that's pretty neat. Give a unit +4 +0 for the phase. Wow, okay, we've seen this on Shoot First, we've seen this on Surprise Strike, pretty wild.
They said before as well, they used
it was meant to be attack,
yeah.
but it just didn't fit.
It just didn't fit on the card. It was meant to be +3 +0 and attack.
It was supposed to be Surprise Strike.
Surprise Strike.
I mean, that depending on how early on that could have been, Surprise Strike could have been made because of that. So that's interesting to think about. Exhaust up to 2 units.
Yep.
And then your opponent randomly discards a card from their hand.
Yeah, very cool. I think we've seen a lot, obviously people love to tier list these dual aspect kind of...
Everyone loves tier lists.
Everyone does love tier lists.
We're going to be doing them.
True. And I think this one really comes in as an interesting spot in that, like a lot of people...
It's a big old third for me.
It's a big old third. Really?
Out of the 4, this is number 3.
Interesting.
I like command, I like aggression, I like cunning, and
Vigilance is there.
Vigilance is hanging out.
Yeah, I definitely think this is on... I would put this on the same level, like, as
aggression.
Command.
Really? Actually, now I think about it, that's fair, because it has the disruption, the devs even said, it has the capability to completely remove 3 units for a turn.
Yeah.
Bounce 1, exhaust 2. Bounce a unit, make your opponent discard a card. Exhaust 2, make your opponent discard a card. So it's all about expending resources, which is great, because that's what Cunning wants. It wants you to expend all of your resources. It wants you to be able to dwindle your hand. It wants you to buff your units. It wants you to rest your opponent's stuff. It's all about disruption, not necessarily removal, but disruption.
Yeah, and I think this kind of comes into the same vein as aggression in the case where you can find a card that it's just a better version of. So with aggression, you find open fire, deal 4 damage, then draw a card, or deal 4 damage, remove 2, and it's just kind of a better version of that for 1 more cost. Yeah. Where here it's waylay.
Here it's waylay. Here it's Astro Sanctuary for the resting.
Although that does have a caveat on the bounce.
Yeah, and then of course you don't get a shield, but you resource 2 units. This is wild. Nice leader, loser, and nice other unit, boink boink, sleepy time. And then if you really want to hit him with the ouchie ouchies, you go, and that one is mega sleep. You're no good to me, dead. Awesome stuff. I love this card. Again in the cycle, really powerful, really sweet. Effects are all really relevant. I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all these, like, it's really.
I
was worried when Vigilance first came out that they would just kind of be pushed off to the side, but I definitely think there is a case to have those monocolor decks.
For sure. I definitely don't think any of them fall below a 3.5.
No, they're all very good, and
some are definitely more powerful than others.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that none of them are powerful. Like even Vigilance is a 3.5. Like I rate that card pretty high on the scale. But Command for me is pretty wild. Like that, it just the cards are great. Being able to do 2 things for 4 cost is like that feels right.
To me, I rate Cunning over Command purely because Command is so tied into having units on the board that if you do come across something where you just
Resist doesn't require that.
like so in Command you can kind of get like, oh well, I can give 2 things a experience, like something 2 experience tokens and then deal damage. It's like, oh well, I don't have anything on board. It's like a lot. So I feel like in a vacuum, Cunning has that edge where it doesn't require
that's fair.
something else to make it good.
That's fair. I agree with that. I think really overall that's all the cards we've talked about. We've definitely used a lot of time. There wasn't too much to cover up in the stream though, so we can probably breeze through it. Firstly, first stream with Xander as a host. Woohoo! We got to see one of the newer devs, Hyperspace Joe. Very cool nickname. Hopefully we see more of him. Got to see, I believe it's Tyler again. Tyler went to Xander at TwitchCon. They both had a very good time. I love their energy. All in all, awesome to see some more devs. A couple of notable things. Firstly, we already covered it a little bit, but Spectres were confirmed to be getting more than just this event. So at minimum, there'll be 2 Spectre events in the set. Super exciting for all you Rebels fans out there. Super excited for all you Hero deck fans out there. Super excited if you love both. So super cool for that. We learned a little bit about the hand discard side of things in the sense that yellow's not the only colour that has it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see more of that. They said aggression is going to get some hand discard as well, but it's the opponent chooses which card to discard.
What I think that stuff might be is I feel like aggression's kind is going to be you both pick on one discard and then you both pick one up, you both draw. Like I think we would see. I think we could realistically see something like on attack, you and your opponent each discard a card, and you and your opponent, or even for the multiplayer side of things, each player may discard a card. If they do, you draw a card. We may also just see something that just says your opponent picks a card, discards it.
I cannot wait for the multiplayer rules. So
I'm very excited. That has been confirmed. I'm super keen. That's going to be so fun. That was a notably interesting thing. There's 2 more really sweet things they confirmed about Cunning. Space vehicles. This is where you're going to get your value. Like, if you want to play space, apparently yellow-green...
Low-cost space.
Like your low-cost, well-statted space units, yellow is going to be your flavor. And it pairs really well with green in the sense that you've got to prepare for takeoffs and things like that. Or, if you really want to go ham... You can pair it with red and play Sabine if you want to check out last week's gameplay video. Pretty awesome deck. That's a pretty sweet deck. And knowing that we're going to get more cards that might fit into that archetype is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the green-yellow space race for layer is definitely on the books.
So keen. I know we tested out blue-green space race and it worked really well with what we had at the time. And I think that yellow events are ridiculous. All of the yellow events we've seen are just good. And most of them are 2s, if not constant 3-ofs in any yellow deck we've seen. And I think most of you can agree in that currently. Getting space units to be able to support that as an interesting and powerful deck that has the utility of yellow, the searching power and consistency of green, It's going to be really exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a really cool thing that we see moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And then finally, we've seen it on the Falcon. We've seen it on the Fire Spray. Units that enter readied.
So they said very few, so I'm guessing there's probably only like maybe one or two more.
But they did say that that's Yellow's shtick, right? Like, you will be... The other colors, like blue and green, probably won't be getting it. Red has the ability to ready units, but Yellow will have them enter readied.
Yeah, we've
really
seen that,
cool.
obviously the Falcon and the Fire Spray are where we've seen that.
It'd be interesting to see if they're both ground units or if it's one more space unit that's just generic and one ground unit that's just generic. Or, who knows? But it's interesting to see this kind of stuff. I think they also mentioned that Yellow would be getting a lot of ambush as well, and then like red is going to be the Saboteur and Grit colors predominantly. Blue is obviously going to be predominantly the Shield and Restore.
They want to be unpredictable and they want to have their effect happen now, so their on attack effects are happening now. Like.
Much like how red has the effects that it wants to happen now, in terms of like card draw and things like that. This has the effects of disruption now, in the sense that you want to attack now. You want to disrupt your opponent's board now. You want to disrupt your opponent's play now. Whereas red is very much like, I'm going to deal damage now and I'm going to draw now. Yellow is very much like, cool, I'm going to bounce that now. I'm going to play this and attack with it now. It's really cool because Yellow's utilization of doing things now is more focused against your opponent's units, whereas red's is more focused against your opponent's base, which I really like. I like that there's a neat dichotomy between the two.
And red-yellow just kills everything.
Yeah, red-yellow's all about it. Go play your red-yellow Boba Fett decks. They are very good. Very good. Very good.
Very good.
But all in all, I think that really covers off the stream pretty well. There wasn't too much talked about. We really covered it off with the cards. The devs and Xander, just like the rest of us, are so excited to talk about the cards because realistically, the cards explain... Reading a card explains a card. But the card explains the color. It explains the what it's about. So it was really interesting, really fun to listen to them just talk so passionately about the cards. We got to see what Yellow was all about, and I, for one, am extremely excited for the end of this month when we get to see some constructed gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be really excited. But other than that, thank you guys very much for watching. Please check out the gameplay if you haven't. If you enjoy watching us, you enjoy what we're talking about, you want to learn more about Star Wars Unlimited, press that subscribe button and feel free to comment down below. We love answering any comments.
Talking to you guys.
Other than that, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.